Good morning to the great country of the United States. Good morning to the world. Good morning to Northeast and Southeast Texas. Good morning to Southwest and Northwest Louisiana. Good morning to every nook and cranny where our signals permeates, or a 100,000 watt transmitter permeates. Folks, we are going to have a great show for you today. We're going to talk about some very important issues. But before we get busy, of course, we need to relegate some time to our geniuses, the people who make all of this happen, who create the tentacles of knowledge throughout our sphere. Señor Genios del Estudio, welcome in.
Eggbro, you sound like you're coming from Mars this morning. I think you got something going on with your signal. We've also got something going on with the Arnie Arneson show too. It keeps cutting out early. We don't know why. So we're going to get in touch with the folks and get out the big hammer and start working on it. Michael called in and said, "Man, I'm missing my Arnie and I want to hear some Bruce Springsteen." Well, not early for Bruce Springsteen, but we will play you some Bruce Springsteen if this keeps going on. Harry will be happy this morning. We were playing smooth jazz. That last cut was Greg Chiquiso's Cafe Express. And Jack and I were up dancing around in the studio, but we always run into stuff and he falls down. So I had to pick him
Yeah.
up and we get the buttons working. Enough of this silliness. Jack, you got some wisdom for us this morning?
Well, I hope it's wisdom. This is just my opinion and stuff like that. But, if America elects an authoritarian strongman, guess who he'll have authority over? You.
You, yeah.
You who want a tough talking leader. You'll get a leader who is 90% trash talker and only 10% action.
Hmm.
Are
We
the
know.
loss of your rights worth it? 267 laws have been written to demonize women's reproductive rights. The Christian nationalist movement brings more judgment and religious dogma to the people.
Jack, I was thinking about that. The evangelical right. Who are they? Who the hell are they? If Christ were here, he'd probably puke on them and say, "What are you doing, you nutcases? I didn't say to do all this stuff. I didn't say, live by this sword. I didn't say that. I said, love one another, take care of one another, do not judge." That's what he said. Now, who these evangelical people are following, I think it's Satan.
Could it be Satan?
Satan? I think so. Egberto, what do you think?
Look, when I, for my evangelical brothers and sisters, I'm going to say, I forgive you. And I really put it that way. And I'm not saying it from the point of view like, oh, somehow we are better than they are. But here is the deal, folks. When you have a leader like the Second Baptist master preacher, Eddie Young, who people naturally would have trust in their pastor, lead lead the pew astray, you can understand what's happening. Now, I hear in Jack's voice the concern that people are going to vote Trump into office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And what I've been doing throughout everywhere that I go is calming folks down and letting them know, look, Americans are smart people. First of all, they would say, but we elected Trump. Well, our broken constitution elected Trump with something called the Electoral College. Most Americans said no. Let's all remember that. Most Americans said no. Secondly, in 2020, the vast more Americans came out and said, hell no. And hell no beat the Electoral College. I am not going to say that I have faith in the American people. I'm going to say we know the American people. And the pathway is there. People can talk about being disgusted right now with the system, etc., as they rightly should for many reasons. But I feel, this is just me, and I may be delusional. I'll tell you one thing. In 2016, I predicted the possibility of a Donald Trump winning the Electoral College with triangulation. I wrote an article and got torn up about that on Daily Kos, but it was right there for all to see, in my humble opinion. And I'm going to say what I'm seeing right now. I am seeing a landslide away from Trumpism in 2024. And I know a lot of people don't see that right now, but I'm starting to see the inklings of a mass moving away from Donald Trump. But it doesn't happen in a vacuum. It happens with us communicating with our brothers and our sisters. It happens with us respecting our brothers and sisters. Go ahead, my dear brother Howard.
I have been researching the possible split in the Republican Party that I was talking
Hmm.
about earlier in the week. It's
Hmm.
starting to happen. They're
Yes.
starting to split. They're starting to say, well, hey, wait a minute, this guy's too extreme. He's too nutty. We can't support
Yes.
him. And he appointed Lara Trump uh, to the RNC to say, we're going to spend every penny we get to get this man reelected. Well, that's not exactly how it works. There's plenty of other candidates out there that are going to need the help from the RNC.
Hmm.
They're saying, wait a minute, hold on. We can't just spend all of the entire funding on one man because we need that funding too for our campaigns. And
Right.
we're part of the Republican Party. What about us? So we're starting to see that crack begin.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it should be interesting what happens on the 25th
Yeah.
because that's when the bill comes due for Donald Trump.
Right. I mean, I think it's important for us to, again, we, first of all, we have polls. I don't know how accurate the polls are. I mean, if we go by who've been elected in all these off years, what policies have been passed in all these off years, the polls have been dramatically incorrect. So they've been given a strong bias towards Trump. And I think that the reason they've done that is because they got burned. They thought they got burned in 2016, but I repeat, Donald Trump has never won an election in the United States, a democratic election in the United States. He has never won. Yes, he has won the presidency because of the Electoral College, but let's stop putting into the ethos, and this is, I wish the mainstream media would do this, that Donald Trump ever had majority support in this country. He never did. Most of Americans are good people. Most Americans do the right thing. And the same thing I expect to happen. It happened in 2022, it happened in 2020, and it will happen in 2024. When people start to see things like the cabal that is protecting Donald Trump, both on the in the justice system as well as in the political system, while all the peons that fought that, or I should call them all the terrorists that fought on January 6th, are being thrown in jail and let go. I think people are going to understand, wait a minute, we can't have a system like this. Let's really get back to reality. But anyway, does John and Jack need to, John, does Howard and Jack need to say anything else before I start the program?
No, I think we're good. Jack delivered his wisdom, and we're ready to get this program started and not hijack your show.
It's our
So,
show. No, you
yeah,
can't hijack what's ours. But
well,
anyhow,
you're sounding a little hollow this morning, like you're
I am
coming in
not
from
sure.
Mars.
I am not sure why that is because the entire setup is the same. So I beg to ask the controls to see if there's something on the control side that may be the issue here because I'm looking at all the systems and I don't see
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
change. Yeah. So anyway, let's go ahead and
Okay.
get busy, folks. Good morning, Melanie Keelan from Barcelona, Spain. Good morning, everybody listening. The title of the show today is advice for Biden on 2024. Fox News lies on migrant crime. Progressive fights paying off. And we're going to start with the progressive fights paying off with two articles. And that's where we're going to begin because it shows that things really work. Welcome aboard, Lizard Queen. Good morning. on the chat. Welcome aboard, Melanie, on the chat as well. But it seems like we already have 3 calls. So as I said, you guys come first. Whatever we don't cover from what we were supposed to cover, go to politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. politicsdoneright.com/newsletter. Let's go to John, line 1. Come on in.
Great to chat with you again. I'll go back to my original premise. A healthy nation does not elect a Donald Trump. Right? There's something wrong with the maybe it's the electoral college, because of the goofy, but that's just, isn't the electoral college in the Constitution, So
Yes.
yeah, so you have to deal with Wyoming with there are 2 senators and their electoral college. Any rate, but how do we win back the Trump voters? And
Let me,
and also, Justin, who do you think is running the White House with Biden? I mean, Biden clearly is not.
all right, let me take each one of those things that you brought up. When you talk about a healthy nation does not elect a Trump, I couldn't have said that any better. And thank you, John, for saying that. We are not a healthy nation. And we're not a healthy nation for various reasons. Our economic system has laid waste to the average American citizen. When under the Trump administration, 80% of people lived paycheck to paycheck in a rich country where they saw the stock market zoom in, where they saw everybody doing, all the very small amount of people doing very well. Under Biden, that has been mitigated somewhat, where only 60% of people live in paycheck to paycheck. But remember, 60% of people represent about 200 million people, meaning the vast majority of the country. So, yes, it's a country that is sick. It's a country that is constantly looking for somebody who is going to save the country. And because we have the biggest master around now, because we have I called antiseptic slavery right now, where we are all turned into a new kind of slave. It's just one that is nicer to look at. It's antiseptic. It's antiseptic. So you hit the nail on the head. It's not a healthy country. What we have to do is work on things from several angles. The way we tackle the I'm coming to everybody, but I want to say this. The way we tackle the virus, you're a doctor, if I recall, John. The way we tackled the virus, the AIDS virus, is we realize if we hit it with one drug, it eventually mutates, doesn't support that drug anymore, and then it kills the patient again. Well, what did we do? We created something called a cocktail that hit the drugs from so many angles. The drug didn't have a chance to mutate to solve what's killing it, and that's why Magic Johnson and all these people can live forever with no traces of the drug of the virus in their body. In as much as it may be hiding in certain places in their bodies, we don't know. But that's how we tackle it. The same thing we have to do with America. We have to tackle it from one. The economic system must be modified so that it's humane, meaning healthcare, all those things have to be taken into account so that people really see a government working for them, because we in fact are the government. Number two, you asked how are we going to get to the Trump voters without what would I say? We as a 501c3, I have to be careful on how I talk about the things that I've written, right? But I wrote a book called "It's Worth It: How to Talk to Your Right-Wing Relative Friends and Neighbors." And the reason why I wrote that book was I personally developed different ways of dealing with folks. I live in Kingwood, Texas, a very red area, and I enjoy my Republicans that have coffee with my Republicans. I enjoy everybody. How? It is first of all remembering that while on the radio I do most of the talking, when I'm talking to my buddies, I do most of the listening, and I give the respect to let folks understand that I am not just li- taking what they say to give them a response, but I'm listening to them to see where they are. And in seeing where they are, I can actually come to a symbiotic relationship with them to say, okay, let me ask you to see things through my eyes as I'm trying to see things through your eyes. And when they realize that there's so much commonality that we have, generally speaking, things change. In my book, I wrote an article that said one of these people came into the gym when I was working out, slapped me on the back, and said, "You're going to like me, but I ain't no Democrat." And he said, "I'm voting the way I'm supposed to vote, but I ain't no Democrat." In other words, he was going to vote in this particular election for a whole slew of Democrats, but not because he was changing his ideology, not because he was changing who he was, but because he was working in the best interest of his family, etc. When we show people that, things change. So those are your two answers, Brother John. One is yes, we're a sick nation. Two is how do we talk to MAGA? We talk to MAGA by respecting that there is a reason they become there. I understand that the evangelicals have become the way they have. They have become unchristian because the leaders who should be their pastors have become evil. When we talk about somebody like Ed Young talking the way he talks about other human beings, you wonder why these people are able to talk the way they do. That's the reason. John, please come back.
Yeah, listen. Oh, not listen. Sorry. I think we need to somehow bring back the middle class. I mean, you said, under Biden, you said 60% live paycheck to paycheck. That's non-sustainable.
No, it's not.
When I was a kid, I grew up in Northern California, like what's now Silicon Valley. Everyone was middle class. I mean,
Hmm.
everyone. There are some kids whose parents had money. Most of us were just average middle class. Went to public schools. Public schools were good. Now I couldn't afford to buy a garage in that
Hmm.
area. Now I
Right.
know that's hyper wealthy area, but that speaks toward the decline of the middle class, the people who just have daily jobs. They pay their taxes, they obey the laws, they raise their pillars in their community, and I just don't see that. And I think that's the illness in our nation,
Thank you,
Alberto.
John. I think when you mentioned it the first time, I did say yes, John. You're right. It's an ill nation, and when you say that, that is a part of changing the economic system. Our economic system, by design, creates that scenario. The mathematical formula. All economic systems are governed by some mathematical formula. They don't tell you that in business school, right? But it's a mathematical formula that governs the system. And in a system where those with capital grow at 7% plus and those without capital grow at a much lesser percentage, it is not sustainable, as you just said, because again, as that pie, which is a closed system, grows, what occurs, the disparities, the wealth disparity and income disparity is comes out from
It's
exactly what you just
unsustainable.
said.
The
Exactly.
wealth disparities are unsustainable.
You're
The
right.
disparities in wealth are just magnificently unsustainable.
Right.
And can I switch gears slightly? If I
Sure.
know you have other callers,
Yeah, I got
what
other callers
what
I
are
got to go
your
to.
thoughts on? Yeah, I know you got to go. What are your thoughts on classic liberals like Bill Maher? I sort of identify with him. I mean, like liberal classic, meaning liberty, freedom.
Yeah,
Not
let me just tell
really
you,
united, but
I got you. I was a great admirer of Bill Maher until a recent change. Bill Maher has signed a pact with the devil, is what many of us have been saying recently. Bill Maher knows better. Bill Maher used to say the things as they are, but Bill Maher has come to the conclusion that being progressive now is somehow pie in the sky. And from the discussion that you and I have just had, being progressive is not pie in the sky because you identified the problem. The problem was our economic system. Bill Maher thinks the economic system, for all practical purposes, is just fine. He doesn't. I mean, he never thought that way before, but now he has changed. So, in principle, I used to align with him perfectly. Lately, I don't know what has happened, but John, look, thank you for one other
I
thing
know
that
you
you
have
said,
other
John.
callers.
Yeah, but before I would need to answer one other thing. Please don't fall for the trap that. So, look, I think our president is too damn old. Biden is too damn old, I think. And I'm not. This is not to be offensive to my older listeners, but look, people have asked me, why don't you run? I'm like, I'm too damn old to run. We need to leave the running for the 30 somethings and the 40 somethings right now. But here's the thing. Biden is very, very smart. He has a lot of old ways that need changing. That I think the progressive wing was successful in getting him to pass several policies that helped Americans. That's where we went from 80% to 60%. But I think he's very smart with the right push. I think he'll do just fine. We would have loved somebody else, but that's who we got. Thank you very much, John, for entertaining and allowing me to say some important things. You have a wonderful day, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Liz, line number 4. I don't think I've seen Liz before. Come on, Liz. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, Egberto. How are you doing?
I am doing great.
It's Liz Townsend. I have kind of a perspective about talking to Republicans and
Hmm.
why they also are so entrenched in that sort of MAGA culture.
Hmm.
Okay, so I do a lot of political work, and part of that is doing canvassing, doing surveying of voters, and asking them different questions, and just literally coming up to their door because most people don't see past their own doorway, if you know what I mean.
Hmm.
So you go to their door to inform them and educate them. And we have a saying where voters come for the candidate, but they stay for the organizers. They
Wow.
stay for the relationships that they build. Because this person may not like be, they may not be perfectly affable and genial and just and intelligent. And even though they might represent Trump, the relationship they've built with that organizer is going to be more important to them. And that's really difficult to break through. Plus, to be able to go on such a widespread sort of campaign to change people's minds or educate them would take an immense amount of resources. We're talking like Obama type canvassing, and it just when these people are in that echo chamber, there's nothing that can really pull them out of it unless they're personally affected. If
You
that makes sense.
know, Liz, no, actually, you made perfect sense. And actually, you talk about some of the stuff, the book that I told you about that's in there. And it's genius what you just said. They stay for the organizer. They stay for that person. They have a personal relationship with whoever that person is. You go and you stay with that person and you talk over the problems that they have, and you relate how the candidate that you are canvassing for is going to help mitigate their problems. It doesn't matter what their ideology is. If they think that candidate is going to solve that problem, that's who they vote for. You know how you can tell that that is a solution that works? A guy named Sherrod Brown in Ohio. Sherrod Brown in Ohio always shows that he's for the working class. He support policies for the working class. And as Ohio goes bat, you know what, crazy, the person that always get elected is Sherrod Brown because he goes into East Palestine and he stays in East Palestine. He goes into all these other places and he touches, he feels, he hugs. He let people know who that he really cares for them, irrespective. I don't care if you call yourself MAGA. I don't care if you call yourself this. He shows that he cares about human beings. And what you're saying about the voter stays because of the personal relationship that they've developed with that canvasser representing that candidate is what it's all about. Politicians are generally, many are so damn lazy, they don't go out there and do the work to earn the trust of people. And this is not to, this is not to give people a pass who are just bad people, but this is saying people don't turn bad in a vacuum. People turn bad because of a whole lot of situations. That goes for criminals, that goes for voters, that goes for everything. So first of all, thank you for being a canvasser. You are one of the most important parts of
Uh-huh.
our democracy. So thank you.
Thank you. No, I mean it's really important. It's very helpful, especially to local candidates. We have runoffs happening right now. So please look into that. I cannot remove everybody's name, but it just it's a sense of tribalism with them.
Hmm.
Plus, Republicans are ride or die, and trying to organize Democrats is like herding cats.
Look, let me tell you. Some other time, I'll tell you the story about me and a Republican woman in a coffee shop. And but I don't. I have to go to other callers right now. But Liz, I appreciate your
Okay.
call and thank you for your positivity and thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, and I hope your wife's feeling better. Take care.
Actually, we got out of the hospital just last night. So thank you.
Oh, that's good. That's good. All right. Well, you take care.
You too now. All right, let's go to Brother Johnny, the mayor of Politics Done Right.
Okay, are you with me, guys?
I'm with you, Johnny.
Okay. I'm going to make this quick because I had a migraine attack yesterday afternoon and I woke up a little while ago and it's almost all gone. So not to tempt the fate, I'm going to go back to the dark room and go to sleep again when I'm done.
Oh, my brother, my
Uh,
brother. I'm sorry for your migraine, brother.
It happens, you know. People a lot worse off than I am right now, looking Gaza. So I'm relatively lucky. I wanted to make a comment to someone, one of our regular right-wing leaning callers, I think it was yesterday. He made a comment about radio stations, but first I wanted to dovetail with what you said at the top of your show this morning. You talking about well, let me just say by the fact that you're talking about how people get into office through electoral college and all, and people should be mindful of the fact that we outnumber them, and likewise. The grassroots effort that started in the Tea Party, the Tax the Enough Already Party. Remember when Barack Obama was at his height? That organization was hijacked by the billionaire class. So it transferred. It went from a grassroots effort to a astroturf effort. So we got to be mindful. And at the same time, what your caller said yesterday about AM radio stations going on their way out. Let me ask him if he's listening. Remember, what is it? 800 or 1,000 radio stations are fixing to come into being that are primarily Latino language. They're Spanish language radio stations underwritten by the oligarchy. Am I off on my numbers?
No, you're correct.
Yeah. So when he says radio, specifically AM radio, is on its way out, no way. Otherwise, they wouldn't be plunking all that money into trying to reach Latino speaking Americans to get their vote. That's what's going on here. And by the way, haven't we heard that once before about radio when TV was invented?
Yeah.
No. Radio will always be with us in some form. Always. Because that's human nature. We want to talk to each other. Even if we can't see each other. It's human nature, contact. And the oligarchs, they know it. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother Johnny. Johnny, go into your dark room and make sure that headache doesn't come back. Just keep Politics Done Right on so that you'll have more commentary for us tomorrow. Let's go to our good brother Harry, who is likely very happy with Howard for playing all the music selections he loves. How you doing, Harry?
Oh, good morning, Howard. Good morning, Jack, and good morning, Roberto Willis. And I'm glad that your wife is feeling better. I keep praying that she'll continue to get better. And I also pray that your daughter does not get any more strokes and that she can live a long, healthy life. Because you're a good man, you're a good father. You do a lot of good things. You inform people. And Johnny, Mayor of Politics Done Right, I hope you feel a lot better. You bring a lot to the table, as does Augie, as does Tag, as does John, your first caller, about the middle class. How can we repair that and get the Trump voter to think why you would not want to vote for this criminal? But I just look at it, the oligarch, the plutocrat, what Arnie Arneson was talking about this morning, stock buybacks, and then then the first 10 minutes of her first half hour, second half hour before it cut out. Those are the Wall Street type people. Those are the ones that want to vote for Donald Trump because they are, and they want a Republican controlled Senate and House because they want another tax cut. Those kinds of people. With the, as John was talking about, the paycheck to paycheck people, that is not sustainable. And the MAGA people, if you can, if they listen to shows like Politics Done Right and not just get snowed by right wing radio and listen to other informed shows like Arnie Arneson or Steve Hunter when he has guests on that talk about sensible things, then they'll think. And as when my brother and I talk about this, he says in the end, they're not going to vote for a criminal. In Donald Trump with all these legal problems. And as Howard said early in the show, the bill is going to come due. Letitia James is going to go after those assets. And I mentioned that the other day when I called, I think Wednesday, Berto, that they're going to seize his assets if he can't pay that bill back to the state of New York, the banks, his mortgage fraud, his tax fraud, and he can't get a bond company to pay that bill for him. So, people will realize that and think not to vote for this man. And as you said earlier there, Roberto, Donald Trump has never won a popular vote. It's just Hillary lost those battleground states in 2016 because they weren't feeling her. They didn't like her message. I didn't vote for her. I voted for Jill Stein, and one of the reasons I didn't vote for Hillary because she called black people super predators. So back then, and that's why I voted for Jill Stein. And I'm voting for Dr. Cornel West, as I've told you many times on this show, because I just think he's the best person to lead us, and he brings people together. And I just don't know if Joe Biden will do the right thing, and he's done a lot of things in the past that I hold him accountable for, voting for the Iraq War, voting for the Afghan War, voting for that credit card bill when people get in trouble with their credit and they can't file for bankruptcy, busing, those kinds of things. And that's why, Joe Biden will never get my vote. 4 years ago, I just decided I wrote Harry Denson in for president 4
All
years
right,
ago.
Harry, look, thank you, my brother, for your commentary. Respect your opinion. Just to do a short counter to your opinion, I want to tell folks that I understand Harry's passion and I understand Harry's rationale. In my case, I am never voting for the person proper. I am voting for the totality of the policy. And what I'm asking people to consider as they make their votes is to go down and calculate, do all your calculations and see if what the outcomes are based on your vote. In a state like Texas, where it is very unlikely that a Biden would ever win a state of Texas, unlikely, but still possible. Um, Protest votes because of the Electoral College can actually make sense. But when it comes to if your vote particularly will allow a Trump to come into power, you have to consider if feeling good about sticking it to somebody is worth it. Like I said, my as a host, I have a responsibility, a different responsibility than my brother Harry. My responsibility is to ask folks to completely think things through. But Harry, I got to go and get started with a few things here. So thank you so
Okay,
kindly,
you
my
have a good
brother.
day, and I hope your wife continues to get better. And just keep praying for you. And when people think things through, like you just said there, Roberto, they'll make an intelligent vote. And let's just predict that we don't get a Republican-controlled Senate or a Republican-controlled House. And
I don't. I think, like I said before, and you can play this tape, and I will look and I say, "Whoop, I didn't get it right this time." But I see a big switch towards, and I don't like to say a big switch toward Democrats. What I want to say is I see a big switch towards people voting their interest. Okay, and if that happens to be a Democrat, so be it. Thank you so kindly, Harry, for calling in. Okay, brother.
Have a good weekend, guys. Have a good
You too.
weekend. Take care.
You too now. You have a great one. Anyway, folks, look, I said we had four, actually it's four subjects, and we're not going to get to all of them. So please remember to go to politicsandright.com/newsletter, politicsandright.com/newsletter. All the videos, that stuff is right there in the newsletter. But I want to first talk about how things work. In other words, how we become successful. We don't become successful by saying we try something today and it doesn't work and we give up. That's not what we do. uh, a, a group of progressives have been at it a long time, pushing unions, pushing the $15 minimum wage or above, pushing all these things. And while people think we were pulling at straws and it'll never happen because of the type of government we have, well, guess what? Things have started to happen, and in so doing, we've started to get results. When we get Harry was talking about what Biden did and didn't do. A lot of what Biden did wasn't because of the neoliberal thinking that Biden had normally had, but because of the pushing that came from progressives. And progressives, as I mentioned before, under Biden had been more successful than under just about any Democratic president since not Lyndon John, well, probably since since I was going to say since FDR, because I think it's actually would be since FDR. The policies that got passed under Biden. Of course, there was a pandemic that assisted him in giving him the wherewithal to be able to satisfy progressives, but still, the fact of the matter is that they got done. Now, this article kind of tickled me a bit when it said new wage data shows when workers organize and fight, it pays off literally. A new analysis shows that unionized workers across the United States secured historic wage increases under contracts negotiated last year, further demonstrating the power of collective bargaining. According to Bloomberg Law, 2023 union contracts gave workers an average first year wage increase of 6.6%, the highest raise since at least 1988. If that wage increase for 1 year was 6.6% and inflation was 3 point something percent, folks, what it tells you is that their financial well being for those that are unionized got better. I'm going to talk about why I said for those that are unionized got better. With sign-in bonuses and other lump sum payments added to the calculations, the outlet added 2023's average first-year wage increase was 7.3%, also a record high according to Bloomberg Law's latest quarterly union wage data report. The AFL-CIO, the largest federation of unions in the United States, highlighted the findings on social media Thursday's writing, "When we fight together, it pays off literally." It is well established that unionized workers are paid more and receive better benefits than non-union employees. A Treasury Department study released last year estimated that unions boost their members' wages by 10 to 15% and improve fringe benefits and workplace procedures such as retirement plans, workplace grievance policies, and predictable scheduling. But unionization also benefits non-union employees, as shown by the United Auto Workers' historic contracts victories at the big three U.S. automakers. What had to happen? Of course, Tesla and Toyota, which are not union shops, got scared and they had to raise their wages to be competitive with the with the union shops, because they knew if they weren't, unionization at those places would be successful. Well, I don't think we should give Tesla or Toyota a pass. I think every single American worker should be in a union. They should have unions for whether you're an engineer, a lawyer, a doctor, even if you're an independent doctor that depends on interactions with, let's say, government services, etc. I think everything should be unionized. And why? The reason why is that in a system where you have collective bargaining, people do better. I mean, if you go to your boss and ask for a raise, your boss can say you're a troublemaker, get the hell out of here. If you're under the auspices of a union, and the union says you fire this person, nobody works at your shop, you stop making money. We have equity. You see, the problem that we have in society today is we have given a pass to the capitalists, the people who own capital. We have told them that they are better than us. They are better than the people who do the work. They are better than the people who think. They are better than the people who have intellect. And why are they better? Because they have this thing called capital. They have money. And how did they get the capital? It doesn't matter. They have capital, and as such, we look up to them. We look up to the Steve Jobs. We look up to the Bill Gates. We look up to the Elon Musk. We look up to the Jeff Bezos. They have capital, and somehow having capital make them geniuses? Or wait a minute, all the folks that they were dependent on to turn that capital or grow that capital are actually the ones doing it, and that is where getting a genesis of unions throughout this country will start to make folks realize that we are all stakeholders. And by stakeholders, I mean nobody can live without the other. That person who thinks they're wealthy because they have acquired the capital, however, they have acquired the capital, cannot hold on to that capital without us. People may say, well, I have a good friend right now in the chat would say, well, if you go ahead and you tax the rich and you make it hard for the rich, they'll just go. The answer to that is let them. One of the reasons America has the largest military on the planet, larger than the next 10 nations combined, is because we safeguard the capital not only here in the United States, but the capital owned by Americans throughout the world. Right? No military means coups can occur any part of the world, and these coups take whatever assets and capital the capitalists have acquired. Let them go. After we start to right size capitalism, after we start to tell folks that Jeff Bezos, or rather, Jeff Bezos, that $200 billion or so that you claim is yours, I think it is actually belong to the people who earned it. And you see, it's a different mindset. You were indoctrinated into believing that these guys earned it. That indoctrination that these guys earned it is a manifestation of the belief that slavery is okay. You put the person to build and create, and then the master takes the spoils. The 0.1% takes the spoils. It's hard to imagine that that is how we were taught to think, because we don't put it in those stark terms. People say, hey, Berto, I'm not a slave. Don't call me a slave. Well, you know what, folks? We all are. Until we change the economic system, we all are. And one way to start that transition is the unions to start saying that for us all to be unionized. The fact that union people make that much more money than non-union should be the answer. That we have a state here in Texas called a right to work state, which is a misnomer. It means a right to be exploited state, where unions are less effective than in states that effectively support unions is a problem. But worse is to have people indoctrinated into believing that collectively they cannot be as strong, and as such they don't want unions. Because you ask many Texans about unions and they'll scoff at you. They'll tell you unions are bad. And you ask the question, who told you that? Why? Why are unions bad? Again, it is that modus operandi that was inflicted on us, that indoctrinative state that teaches us that truth isn't truth. And that is what we have to get away from. And when we cross that barrier, we would become not only the real democracy that we need to be, but we will have financial, not equality, but equity equal access to success. Will you still have poor people? Of course, those people who decide that they want to work less, that's fine. But for those people who want to make it, there wouldn't be obstructions to those who want to make it. Today, you don't get a chance to move into, if you decided that you wanted to form your own company to be a Jeff Bezos, if you will, I mean, you can't. The system is designed to keep you down. The fact that you get your health care from an employer means the employer, or don't get health care at all, means that you're either a ward of the employee, of the employer, or you can't take the chances to move on your own because you don't have health care. You're dependent on some other entity to do it. The fact that the state of Texas doesn't appear to have the Medicaid expansion to the Affordable Care Act means it's willing to have its people die if they don't conform to some sort of being. I mean, there's so much that we can change if we decide to unindoctrinate ourselves from what we were taught at birth to the things that we believe were true. When my brother said those rich people will leave if we start to tax them appropriately, if we start to recover that which was stolen, and legally stolen, but stolen all the way, that somehow these people would leave if we go ahead and we tax wealth. In fact, Texans just passed the law as constitutional amendment, folk. I tried like hell to tell folks understand what it means. Pass an amendment that says the state legislature cannot impose a tax on wealth. Did you know that wealthy people don't get paid in the aggregate via wages? They get paid in wealth. And how do they get paid in wealth? They use all kind of mechanisms to get paid with wealth so they don't have to use their wealth to pay taxes. They borrow from insurance companies as they fund it, and since it's a loan, they spend their own money tax free. You didn't know that, did you? There are magical ways in which the wealthy, magical ways in which the wealthy protects their capital and keep it untaxed, meaning it doesn't go into social security, it doesn't go into the general funds as we the people work. And we the people don't have those options. But they don't, when you go to school, you don't learn about all these financial intricacies that's done to protect capital. But at the same time, they come to us and they say, vote to make sure that if you elect a progressive, and Texas did it because Texas understand what's happening in Texas. We're about to get a progressive government, either this cycle or our next few cycles. And they wanted to make sure and protect the wealth of all Texans. The few Texans that are multi-billionaires, they want to protect their wealth. So you helped them. You helped them not pay their fair share when you tied the hands of future legislators from being able to tax wealth. Wealth grow. Let me give some numbers here, folks. The wealthy's wealth, like I mentioned a couple shows ago, grow at generally a minimum of 7% a year. But if you take a look at the billionaires, they got an 88% return on their wealth over the last 4 years. 88%. 88% over the last 4 years. And you know how many of that went into real taxes for that appreciation? On the appreciation portion, 0. And you gave them permission to not pay any taxes. And all of that wealth that was created out of thin air, out of your work, out of your worth. And why did that happen? That happened because our mainstream media keep most of us uninformed. Hey, Politics Done Right has a small audience, but it can grow if you share it. But most people don't know this stuff. 713-526-5738. I have some time to take a few more calls if anybody wants to talk about this in detail. 713-526-5738. My brother here says wealthy people own businesses. Yes, wealthy people own businesses, and poor people own businesses too. Provide jobs. It's not the wealthy people who provide the jobs. It's the people who work for these corporations that create a product that most of us want. And when we buy it, we make sure that more of it needs to be built and jobs get created. Jeff Bezos couldn't create one job if he asked to do so. You have to understand where worth comes from. Amazon took away moving to New York because AOC did not want to give tax break. Wow. So they wanted Amazon didn't go to New York because it couldn't get welfare, is what you're saying. Amazon did not go to New York because it didn't get welfare. Wow. Wow. You see what I talk about slavery now? That you think the poor people of New York who pay taxes every day need to give this billion-dollar corporation some tax breaks for them to come into the system, right? And you don't think there's something wrong with that? And you are okay with that, my brother? You don't see that? Lizard Queen says, what if Texans could vote on a wealth tax? They did. All right, Harry, again for a short while. Come on in and say what you need to say real quick, Harry.
Okay, I'll make 2 points what you're talking about with the wealthy stuff. When I'm listening to programs, they were talking about borrow, buy, die. And unless they sell their shares in their stock, then they don't pay any taxes. And Elizabeth Warren, for the longest time, has been trying to get a wealth tax. Even Warren Buffett said he wants to be taxed more.
Right, Harry. I want to interrupt you because I want people to understand what you just said. What you just said was very important. When Jeff Bezos's wealth goes up by 88%, all right, because that 88% many times shows up as the appreciation of the stock. And since you don't pay taxes on unrealized appreciation of stock, meaning unless you sell the stock, that's the only time you pay the tax on it. And they don't ever have to sell the stock. They can take out an insurance policy on the stock and spend that money and never pay back that insurance because then the insurance, there are magical financial instruments that we give these guys authority to use to not pay taxes. Thank you very much for bringing that up, Brian, Harry. And let's go.
If they
No.
have any children, they pass it on to them.
All right,
they just pass it on to them, so they don't have to pay them because they never sell the stock.
There you go. Let's go.
Good weekend.
Thank you, brother. Let's go to Brian. Come on in, Brian.
Yeah, you're talking about people not paying the proper amount of taxes?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about electric vehicles? They don't pay 38%, 38 cents per gallon wherever you.
You are, Brian, let me just tell you that you nailed it. Okay. You nailed, Brian, you are very smart. And thank you for that. Let me explain to people something of what you're saying. Whenever you buy a gallon of gas, you're paying 38% in gas taxes so that we can build roads, etc., etc. When we go with an electric car and that electric car goes ahead and is charged whatever for the electricity or whatever, they get to use the streets. We don't tax the gasoline. There's no gasoline to tax for that. So brother Brian is absolutely right. We need to solve that problem, Brian. Right now, the electric car is a nascent market. We have to figure out a way to solve that problem. So you're absolutely right, sir. Anything else?
Okay. The way not to solve it is to pay per mile. Because now the government
actually, again, like I said, brother, there's a way to solve it. And I think you just gave a good option. However many miles that's recorded for that car, maybe that has to be the way it's done, because that's when you buy a gallon of gas, if you get 12 miles to the gallon, that's amount of taxes divided by 38 cents, right? So you make a lot of sense, Brian.
Okay.
Anything
that's
else?
About it. Have a good weekend.
You too, brother. Peace. You know what Brian said makes a lot of sense, right? When we talk about equity and paying the right kind of taxes. Now, let me just slap Brian a little bit back. In one respect, some of the folks like Brian, I don't think Brian is one of them, would use that as an argument not to go to an electric car. It's not an argument not to go to electric car. The argument has to be we need to solve that problem either by making all taxes for roads be based on the amount of miles you drive, or we simply have remove the tax from gasoline altogether and take everything out of general funds, meaning likely a slight increase in taxes somewhere else that somewhere else. I don't believe in taxing on a per public thing usage. In other words, I don't believe we pay taxes for this entity and this for that. No, I believe we throw it all in the pot and we have a society that does it all. I got 2 minutes. Just throw 501 here so we can get that real quick, please, Jack. 501, the caller coming from 501. Come on in right away as soon as Jack gets you in. I think he's going to do that in a second. Come on in, 501.
Hi,
Go ahead.
this is Dana.
Come on in, Dana. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to let you know, talking about the taxes on the electric vehicles.
Uh-huh.
Arkansas makes anyone with an electric vehicle pay an extra $200 a year when they get their tax to I guess a different way, since they don't have to pay gas tax. And I just wanted to let you know that because there is one state, not that they've got good politics. This went in before anybody that's here now, but yeah, in Arkansas you pay $200 a year extra when you get your tax.
That sounds fair to me. So thank you very much for letting us know that, Dana. Anything else? I have a hard stop. Anything else you want to say real quick?
No, nothing at all. Thanks. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Now, thank you so kindly for calling in. Anyway, folks, I need to throw it right back to the studio. Howard and Jack.
Well, Dana makes a very good point
Yes.
as far as adding to the licensing fees for electric vehicles.
Right.
I was actually going to suggest that myself, but she beat me to it. So you stole my thunder. Jack, what you got?
Oh, really nothing on the program, but something I wrote last night is kind of interesting about people. They can't see the future, but they can paint one for you.
Neat, nice. You need to turn that into a limerick because that is insightful. Thank you, my brother. Anyway, folks, listen. Thank you, Howard. Thank you, Jack. Thank you for my smart callers, my smart listeners, and everybody out there. Love you all. We got to get out of here. My name is. Don't forget to go to politicsandright.com/newsletter to finish off the show. We have the rest of the videos and everything that we should have played there. My name is Egberto Willies. This is Politics Done Right, and you guys know how I end this baby. I am what? Out.